This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
Hi, it's Moni, and welcome to Mind and Your Business.
These my dollars make it hurt.
Hey guys, welcome to Mind and Your Business with Moni, and I feel like this episode is going to be the best episode maybe that we've ever had, which isn't saying much because there hasn't been that many, but like let's pretend that there's going to be 200 later and this is still going to be
one of the tops.
One of the tops.
Let's go.
Yes.
That is the energy I want.
Okay, because I have Mathew Blades here.
Yeah.
So Mathew Blades is a almost 30-year veteran radio host.
Yes.
You are now a writer.
Yes.
You are a podcaster.
Yes.
You are a speaker.
Uh-huh.
You're a leader.
Uh-huh.
And you have transformed your life and
Totally.
changed your life. And, you know, I'm so glad that we got connected because just going through and like seeing your story, listening to your podcast and just kind of getting a feel for you over the past week or so, I'm like, God damn.
Yeah.
Let's
Here we
have
go.
some fun.
Isn't
So,
that the best part of podcasting?
It really is because it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know who this guy is. And then you
That's it.
start looking at it and you're like, dang. This
I
guy's
just
the
interviewed
shit.
a guy on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I described him like this. I was like, you know, there's some bands, and you discover them, and you're like, oh my God, these guys are great. And then you dig into it more, and you're like, shit, they have 12 albums. Where have I been?
Where have
the
I
whole-
been?
And
Yes.
that's how I feel sometimes when I meet my podcast guests. Like, how have I not known about this person, and why have I not known about this person?
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
I like subscribed to your podcast
Thank
and I'm
you.
like, dang, like I should have been listening to this forever ago.
Oh,
so
I wish I would have heard the stuff I'm podcasting about forever ago. That's the truth.
for sure. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you
you.
for being here.
Thanks for having
on
me.
our modest, newer podcast. I just really appreciate you giving your time.
Got to crawl before you walk. All good.
That's right.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, so let's start. So for you guys that don't know about Matthew,
Yeah.
a little bit of background from
Sure.
what I'll say what I know, and then can you fill in the blanks?
I'd love to. Go ahead.
Okay, so like I mentioned, you came from this like powerhouse radio career, killing it, and you just hit a wall, burnout, and decided to walk away from it all and like reinvent what you're doing.
That's
Am I
it.
getting that right?
That's it in a nutshell. I
So
mean, it really
what
is.
happened?
You know, a charmed 28-year radio career, radio and television. It was awesome. I got to do all the things I wanted to do. I checked every box. I think my problem when I think about it, like when I step back now and look back on it, was I hit all my dreams by the time I was 25.
Wow.
And then so it was like, what do I do next? And I didn't have the skills and the tools to really put that into action. So I just did what a lot of people do, which is I just kept going to work every day.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I loved my job. It was a very fun job. But yeah, about 3 years ago, things were really falling off the hinges, or however you put, what's the expression I'm looking for? But you
The
know,
wheels
like,
off the wagon?
The wheels were falling off the wagon fully. And I was starting to turn into this version of myself that wasn't a really good friend. I wasn't a really good coworker. And most importantly, I wasn't a really good husband, and I wasn't a really good father to my kids. And I was just getting really stressed out. I hated going to work every single day, didn't want to be around people. I had just found this weird headspace.
Yeah.
And I couldn't seem to get out of it. I used to describe it to people like, I feel like I'm in a room and there's all these doors and they all have handles, but the handles don't work. I can't seem to get out of this room. And this room was my head. And then after I got a round of shingles, which I had never experienced in my life before,
That's
which
weird.
was terrible. And I had 3 nocturnal panic attacks, which means that you wake up in the middle of the night at like 2 o'clock in the morning and your heart's racing like you're having a heart attack. It was terrifying to me. I had no idea what was going on. So I went to the emergency room after my 3rd panic attack, and the doctors did all the tests on me. And what do you think they found?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yep.
Nothing.
It's the worst.
Because it had nothing to do with the physical. It
Yeah.
was all mental and spiritual work that I knew I had to get to work on. So I did. I was right in the middle of my contract, and I went like 3 of the most difficult conversations I ever had to have, right? I had to tell my family that I could no longer stay in this job that I was in. had to break a contract with iHeartRadio, major company who,
Yeah.
wasn't known for letting people out of their deals. And I had to let my agent go, a guy I'd been working with for 20 years. And all these people had to kind of help me get out of my situation. So everybody was cool. Everybody, I think, understood the magnitude of what was happening. And it was visibly, I was not in a good place. You didn't have to be a brain surgeon to recognize that I was in a bad place. And so everybody was cool, and they allowed me out of this thing, and I stepped away from this gigantic career right in the middle of it, and honestly at the height of it. I mean, I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life before, and I was probably gonna make it a lot more money.
Yeah.
But I got to a point where I just decided I don't think that's what this is about. Not for me.
How did you know that it was the job that was causing this, dysphoria in you? How did you know that was the thing you had to get rid of?
That's a really good question, because I knew I needed radical change. And I just kind of felt in my head like all of it had to change.
Okay.
And so I had to leave the work behind.
Yeah.
I'd walked away from a couple other things that I was tied to. I immediately started to change my relationships with my family and my wife and my kids, and started to pour into those very differently than I ever had before. And so I think I knew, to answer your question directly, I probably knew 2 years ago that work wasn't moving in a way that I wanted it to.
Yeah.
But come on, I'm a dad. I've got kids at home. They're in high school. Like, what am I going to do? Walk away? I'm the breadwinner for my family.
Right.
Wait, do we stop going to work? Like, who does that?
Yeah.
Turns out I do that.
Yeah. So I think that is what was really compelling to me. Like when I was just kind of going through and reading about you, is like, that is like such an amazing thing to have to do, and an amazing amount of courage.
Yeah.
How did you know, or did you know that you were going to be okay? That everything would be okay?
Yeah.
Or did you just do it without knowing that?
Yeah, no, I knew I was going to be okay. So what's critical to this story is that when I made that, after that third panic attack, where I made the decision that I knew I needed to get help for myself, I went up and had this unbelievable 5-day experience in Sedona with about what I call my 12 angels. Okay. Like, I found 12 healers who wrapped their arms around me for 5 days straight, and I went right through all my shit. I went right through it. I faced every ounce, what I love to call my trauma trilogy. I faced every one of them head on.
Yeah.
And in those days, I was handed a new, upgraded programming system, if you will. And it was in those moments that I knew I would be okay. Why? Because I've always been okay.
Right.
I'm okay right now.
Yeah.
You're okay right now. Like,
right.
We are going to be okay. And I knew that it was just time to stop worrying about all the little things that I had allowed to fill me up, and get back to knowing. That's kind of what I refer to it as. Like, get back to knowing, because you do.
No, because knowing is a higher level of awareness.
That's it.
Right? So, yes. So I completely understand what you mean by that. So maybe you didn't like know it, but you knew it. It was like, okay, regardless of how this unfolds, I've always landed on my feet. I've always figured it out. So this will be no different, because why would it be different?
I let go. I mean, you can see me. I have these, for those of you who aren't watching, but I carry these mala beads with me. And they are my reminder from my retreat that I let go and I trust the process of life. I let go and I trust I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I let go and I trust that I don't have to do any more than I'm doing right now.
Okay, so it's so weird that you say that, because not this past weekend, but the weekend before, I went up to Sedona with a few friends. I had a experience with them.
Yes.
And throughout the experience, my friend who was facilitating it had these like tarot cards.
Ooh.
And so she was like, periodically pull a card, and then you'd read it. And every time you read the card, it's like, this card is so relevant for me right now in this moment for what I'm
so
experiencing in my head. Yes. And what's weird about what you just said is that my last card, like when we were kind of recapping and like going through like, okay, what does that mean? Or, what is it that you got from this journey? My card said, Spirit always has a plan. And part of one of my biggest challenges in life is I'm very controlling. So me letting go is like the opposite of my natural like way of being, right? State of being, right?
Sure.
So acceptance is not necessarily something that comes easily for me.
Do you know where that comes from for you?
It comes from having like what I feel is like two parents who were very traumatized. And so, and like constantly looking over their shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
There it is.
So like for me, everything that I'm doing is like, I'm always thinking 5 steps ahead of what if this breaks? What if this happens? What if that? Then we're going to do that. Then we're going to do that. And then every little thing I do has to be like perfectly executed so that we can control for any potential mistakes.
Which is a blessing and a curse.
It is.
It's a beautiful thing if you're in an industry where you're hustling and you need to kind of be a few steps ahead of the game.
Yes.
It's a beautiful skill. But in your real life, your regular life, it's
miserable.
useless.
It's miserable.
Yeah.
It is a, my general, like I have a mode that I can get into that is like so incredibly fucking toxic.
Yeah.
Because it just gets into this like, if it doesn't go this way, I'm going to walk into traffic because I cannot stand the deviation from the thing I expected.
Oh my God.
So this card, Spirit has a plan.
Yeah.
And the whole little write-up thing was just talking about like the spirit of the koala, and the koala just chills.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
the koala just allows. And it was like for me to walk out of that journey and be like, allow it, accept it. I have been changed. So the fact that you just said that like gave me chills of like, oh, okay, I'm still being reminded about like the power of acceptance and surrendering.
Yeah.
So
I always say
I'm
the
sorry
next
to sidetrack
90
you.
days after your journey are critical. Like when you have that mind altering moment where you recognize how and why this is important.
Yeah.
It's really the next 90 days are so critical because most people, myself included, I don't know if this resonates with you, but we're in a little bit of like a self-love deficit.
Yeah.
We've gotten busy and we've gotten focused on our kids and our jobs and all these other things. And we're trying to, to use your word, control all of these aspects of our life. But we sort of forgot about ourselves.
Yeah.
And we just kind of keep going and doing. And what we need to do is stop and be. Yeah. Like just sit here for a second.
Yeah.
And don't say anything. Just breathe. Figure out, what do you need? What's important to you? What's really speaking to you? Like most people don't shut up long enough to listen to the voice. They just keep going. And they're like, I don't know the voices. And I'm like, I know you don't, because you won't slow down long enough to hear them.
Yeah.
But if you do, man, they'll tell you exactly where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do. So I want to keep going on this thing with control. It's one of my favorite things to talk about because I was somebody who had to control everything. And that's why I asked you, so where does that come from? So I grew up in a house that had lots of turmoil, lots of volatility, lots of screaming, lots of what people would call abuse nowadays, alcoholism. We also had hugs. I love you. Parents who supported our dreams. But as I always remind everybody, nobody's in therapy for getting too many hugs. Yeah. Right? We're in for the other stuff. And so I know for me, it's a trauma response to have to control everything. Yes. Right? I have to control it because I had to control it to keep myself safe back in the day. Yes. But over time, that need to control the situation, I think it's more stress than it's worth. And now I'm in a position where, like, one of the things I really used to struggle with was having hard conversations. Yes. I was a terrible advocate for myself. Holy shit, would I advocate for anybody and their brother? Yes. But when it came to things that I really needed for me, God, I was so good at playing this game where I said, well, I'm going to talk to them about it. They're probably going to say this. Then I'll say this, and they'll say this. I don't even need to have the conversation. Yes. And I would literally talk myself out of all these conversations. And I wouldn't, and now I recognize how stupid I was because I didn't even give people a chance to say yes.
Right.
Like I just avoided it. In fact, they just wrote this new book called How to Talk to People You Don't Like Talking to. Because I use all of the skills that I learned over the years of being an effective communicator on the radio and interviews and all of these things to basically, I don't want to, like it's a Jedi trick. Here's how you talk to these people.
Right.
Number one thing is you let go of control. You let go of the expectation of where the conversation's going to go. And you stop being so attached to the result that you don't even allow yourself to go through it. So put this in like sales terms. It's like some people are like, I don't want to call that person. I've already bugged them 3 times. Who cares?
Right.
They won't pick up the phone if they don't want to talk to you.
Right.
And they won't return your phone call. And that's a response too.
Right.
Right?
Oh my
but
God.
keep
So
going.
smart.
Like just keep doing the work. As you and I talked about when we got started. You're like, yeah, I'm 15 pods in. It's like, beautiful. Get your reps in.
Right.
But by the time you get to 50 or 100, you're going to get real clear on what this is all about. But most people just, they don't even start. And so that's the problem. And so I think it's really important for people to peel it back a little bit and go, why do you feel the need to control everything? Now, don't get me wrong. If you're an emergency room physician and I've just brought in somebody who's had a major
Sure.
car accident, be in control.
Of course.
But what we're talking about is all of the little pieces of your day, the way you wake up and you treat your family, the way you drive to your job, the way you take your phone calls, the way you talk to your clients, the way you deal with your business world. Do you need to control all of those aspects, or could some of that just be?
Yeah.
And would it be okay?
Yeah.
The answer is it would be okay.
You're absolutely right. That is
Yeah.
the right answer. I experienced it, and I have been experiencing it over the, past couple weeks. So it's not a
Okay.
long time, but it's being proven. And I also think there's something to be said for like what you look for is what you see. So like what I'm looking
100%.
what I'm looking for is confirmation that I can let go of control. When before I would be looking for confirmation that I couldn't. So as soon as I, would let go of control or not be constantly checking my phone or whatever the thing is that's kind of around that, then I would get the confirmation of, see, you're not in control. So now it's all fucked. Look, you can't, da-da-da.
No,
But-
it's such a game.
Right. Isn't it so
Yeah,
funny?
yeah.
So, but now I'm doing the opposite, which is like, okay, listen, if you're going to call the client and you're going to update the client and you're not going to do this mental gymnastics of like, okay, if they say this, then I'm going to say this and da-da-da-da-da. Oh, fuck. I'm going to call them tomorrow. Right.
Right. Because that's
So-
what you'll do. You'll
'Cause
talk
that-
yourself out
You
of it.
will, because these are difficult conversations. And it is very natural to like tie your, you want these people to think you're doing a good job and you want these people to like you.
An expectation.
Right. So
Right.
because of that, it's like, well, I don't want to call with bad news or whatever, because what if now they don't like me? What if now they regret hiring me? Like these are all things that I think anyone listening to this has gone through, especially if you're in sales, but it's ineffective. Like it's maladaptive.
Yeah.
Is what I'm seeing
Right.
in myself. So I'm glad that we're talking about it, because I think it's not something that gets talked about a lot, but it's a very real thing that really impedes, I think, happiness.
Sure.
And the ability to perform at your best too.
You're all about the fear at that point. Like you're fearing the worst. And what I really believe is that most people, they don't even play that game of what if it's really awesome?
Right. What if it goes well?
What if it really kicks
Yeah,
ass?
right.
Right? Like you go on a first date with somebody and what are you and your friends talking about? If it doesn't work out, it's fine. If it doesn't work out,
Yeah.
you're playing up the 100 reasons that it's not going to work.
Right.
And so to use what you just said, you do. The brain believes what you tell it.
Yeah.
It absolutely goes and wants the easiest route all the time.
Right.
But what if it's the greatest conversation that you ever have? There's a story that I love to articulate this. And it's, so my mom and I had a really tough relationship growing up. And so for anybody else who's had sort of a tough relationship with a parent, just lean in a little bit. I think this will be interesting to you.
Me and my mom. I'm listening.
Okay. So you had a tough relationship with her. Yeah, me too. And I honestly can't remember a time where we were like vibing and being each other's best friends.
Sure.
We had a relationship. I would talk to her, she would talk to me, but it was always like this checklist of stuff. It was like,
Yes.
what you doing today? Oh, I'm going to do this and this and this and this. Okay, I'm going to do this and this and this. Okay, well, have a great day and I'll see you later. But we didn't really talk about things.
Sure.
After I got out of my retreat in Sedona, one of the things that I had to really sit with was my relationship with my mom. And I had to really grieve the fact that I didn't have the relationship with her that I would have loved to have.
Right.
But what I did have was the perfect relationship with her, because without all of the bullshit, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. I wouldn't have the skill sets that I have to key in on people's emotions and their feelings and the way that they're sort of vibing in the moment. Like, I'm really good at reading people because of my childhood. Because of my childhood, I could walk into a room and I would have to analyze right away, where are mom and dad at right now?
Yeah.
Do I need to be like a mouse and just go to my room? Or is this the time where I could speak up and share my feelings or my thoughts on the subject? Right?
Exactly
Like,
the same.
So you have to really think about like that whole piece of it. And so I had a memory come up during a sound healing that I was doing in Sedona, which if you've never done sound healing,
I've done it.
they are the
Amazing.
shit. I'd never done them before, and I was so moved by my sound healing, I couldn't believe it. And what it did for me was it unlocked this portal to a memory of me being 9 years old and my mom and I having probably the worst moment of our life. Physically, it was just a beatdown, and it was just anger, and it looked like a monster, like in the room with me with this whole thing happening. I had blocked that out of my memory. I hadn't thought about that in maybe forever. And so after working through that emotion and getting through the next few days of this thing, I knew that I would have to have the hardest conversation of my life with my mom. So I called my mom on the way home from Sedona. And she answered the phone, and I was crying already. And I said, Mom, I think we just have to talk about our experience together growing up. Like, I'm just so ready for this not to be something that owns our relationship anymore. I'm sick of it. Like, we don't have to be perfect, but it can't be this anymore. And so what can we do, you know? And I said, and Mom, I relived this moment of our childhood, and it was so hard for me to go back there. And I'm just here to tell you that I want to work on this. I want to do something. I don't know what, but I want to do something. My mom paused for a second. And then she started to unload her childhood on me like she had never done before. And I learned about the terrible father that she had and the terrible house that she grew up in and all of the violence and one of 10 kids and the way that her brothers and sisters made her feel growing up. And what was crazy was I called her to talk about the stuff that I had gone through.
Yeah.
But all we did for the next 20 minutes was listen to her childhood. And in that moment, my mom and I became so connected and so close because we recognized that we had both gone through the same thing.
Whoa.
And it was probably the most powerful conversation the two of us ever had. And the reason that this is so important is because we spent the next 3 years really, really, really working on our relationship. And this past March, my mom got into a terrible car accident and died 3 weeks later. And our relationship was beautiful, beautiful at the end. And I'm just so happy that I did the work, that I chose to dive into that fire and have that hard conversation with her. Because I know in my heart that if she had gone and we weren't peaceful, I think that would have wrecked me for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so these difficult conversations can be hard, but they can be beautiful too.
I have to ask you something. What gives you this spirit? Like, so I have two impressions that happened so far. You talked about I knew I would always be I've always been okay, so I knew I would be okay, which is like an awareness.
Yeah.
And then that awareness, like to say, I'm going to own the responsibility of reaching out to fix this thing. Like, have you always been a person like that who's just sort of like led? Like, to me, that's like a leader or an owner. Like, have you always owned yourself?
That's a really good question. Maybe I had a lot of growth in my 20s because we lost my dad very suddenly too when I was only 23 years old.
Oh my God.
excuse me. And so there was a ton of growth in my 20s over kind of the spiritual side of life. And so I don't know, stop me when this sounds familiar. I grew up in a religious house. You know, we were all about church and going. And when we got to be about 12, I wasn't as interested in it anymore. And then I kind of checked out a little bit. But then in my like teenagers, late teenagers, early 20s, and most of my 30s, I plugged into Buddhism pretty closely. And so there's probably some of that. There's probably some of that spiritual grounding that comes from the practice.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that I have vivid memories of being 12 years old and looking around my house going, this isn't normal.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be doing something different when I get older.
I've had the same thing.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking that. Is like, I feel like there's an innateness or there's something that's just, there's something more here. I'm meant for more than this, or I can see. It seems like a lot of people are operating in this way, but like, it's not like they're fully operational. Like, I think there's another level, and that's like what you keep speaking to in these stories that you're telling. So I just wanted to ask you the question.
And I want to go deeper and deeper and deeper. Like I know I'm in it, but I feel like there's still more growth for me every single day. And what it really boils down to is, you know, like I'm not the most important thing in the world anymore. And I'm okay with that. I can let life happen around me and I don't have to control it. And it's chaos out there right now. And it's easy to get caught up in it.
It really is.
You can turn on the news for 5 minutes and be pissed off either direction.
Yeah.
You can go out into the world and see that the way that people interact with each other, or maybe don't interact with each other anymore. Yeah. It's easy to look out there and go, man, this is not okay.
Yeah.
But look at this conversation you and I are having.
Yeah.
That wasn't going down 20 years ago.
You're absolutely
right. This is
right.
good. This is good information. You know, I visit with, on my podcast, I talk to psychologists quite a bit. And I always ask them, like, who's walking through your door? What are people talking about?
Ooh, great question.
Right?
Yeah.
And the woman that I just interviewed, Dr. Kelly, it's a great answer. She said, people come in here and they're excited to get to work because they've heard a podcast or they've seen something online. They're ready to work on their generational cycles, or they're ready to break these things. They're ready to step into greatness. They're ready to like learn, absorb. What can I do to be better? Because I think that's what a lot of us want. We all want to be better.
Yeah.
And then when we don't do it, which is self-sabotage, we beat ourselves up.
Yeah.
And now we're in this terrible cycle where we can't feel good about ourselves.
Yeah.
You really have to step into the work, and you have to do it consistently, and you have to do it when you don't feel like it. And over time, I think it becomes who you are.
Yeah. I mean, you are what you repeatedly do,
That's
right?
it.
Can you keep telling this story, your story, about how you went from, okay, you quit, all of your kind of ties were sounds like kind of fairly easily broken, you know.
Very little resistance.
Right.
Right.
So, which is great. You know, you sort of made that happen. Yeah,
it was already in the plan.
Yeah. And then how did you come to decide what you wanted to do? Like, how did you like say, I want to start this podcast, I want to speak, I want to, like, where did that inspiration come from?
Yeah. I knew when I left, the Saturday night that I was in my retreat, I knew that I would start a podcast where I would basically, what I knew in that moment was I was going to go home and I was going to sit in front of a microphone just like this one, and I was going to tell my story. And so I did. After my retreat, it took about 3 weeks. And then I went and sat in my room by myself in my microphone. And for about 4 hours, I just like literally, if I said it to a therapist, I put it on the tape.
That's great.
And I recorded pieces of my my retreat, and I added those to it. And so I really brought people into my experience. Cool. Because I thought in this moment, like, holy shit, if the whole world can flip upside down for me in 4 or 5 days, how many other people could have the world flipped upside down for them in 4 or 5 days? And I knew that there were a lot of people who have a story similar to mine, tougher upbringing, had the kind of like, if you were going to make it, it was going to be on you. Mm-hmm. You know, like all my friends, they grew up, they went to college, they had moms and dads who were like, come home, honey, if it doesn't work out, just come home. And I was in the house where at 18, it was like, start paying rent.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, no, what do you mean? There was no plan B for me. There was always plan A. So, you know, I just ran into it. I feel like I've avoided your question a little bit, but I don't know if I knew what I was going to do outside of that podcasting. And then what I put myself in a position to do was to say yes for more than a year straight. I didn't have to worry about, I always tell people, while I made money, I saved money. So I put myself in a position where we had all our bills taken care of for an entire year. And so I had a whole year where I could just kind of say yes and go where it was supposed to take me. And so that led to all these creative, cool things happening. I was able to, start a podcast consultant business and use my coaching skills as a radio and television person to do that. I found myself working in prisons. Now I'm working at Durango Detention Center. I'm pouring into these young men and these young ladies who have found themselves in the wrong place way too soon. And, I get to pour into those guys. I work at the Vitalent, the blood folks on their community leadership council. I'm just in all these cool spaces. And to me, this feels like this is the person I'm supposed to be. I wasn't supposed to be just one thing. I think I'm supposed to be this guy who does a lot of stuff because that's what lights me up. Every day, my calendar is so different.
I think that most people are supposed to be that way.
Do you think so?
Yeah. My husband is a brilliant man, and but he's going through somewhat of like a crisis of identity or something like that, where he's like really looking for like a thing that he's supposed to be doing.
I love this, by the way.
But he's like that. Like first of all, he's like one of these people that no matter what he does, he's good at it. He's 6'4", like great looking, like just charismatic, just kind of one of these people that oozes this charm. Any place he goes, everyone likes him. And he feels that he's supposed to have some singular focus. But meanwhile, he is fantastic at getting in front of like a problem, creating like kind of getting it started to solve it. And then he gets bored with it and moves on to the next thing. But that's what he likes. He likes kind of novelty. He likes variety. And I'm convinced that like the problem isn't necessarily how he is or what his natural state of being is, but I just feel that he doesn't fit within our culture, which says that you're supposed to have this focus, you're supposed to climb this ladder, you're supposed to get these accolades for these things that you do. Right. To me, that's really where the real problem lies, is like, maybe it's okay that you're saying yes just to things that interest you, someone asks you something. Yeah, why not? Like, try it out. Let's go. Let's see which way it takes us. Yeah. I feel like that's probably the most natural state of like a spirit is that flexibility, right?
To be able to go. Where do I need to be next? Yeah. And so that, the way that I did it, for anybody else listening who's like, wait a second, how does that even happen? Yeah. How do you do that? So my strategy was, and it was kind of like a 3-tiered thing. We did downgrade our house. So we sold a big house, moved into a smaller house, got rid of a car, bought a used car. And so immediately I took what it would cost to live every month and I shrunk it by, considerably, maybe 40%. And so then we added up that number and it was like, okay, so let's just say the number's $5,000. So it was like, okay, you need $5,000 a month for all your bills and to go out and to do what you need to do. And so it's like, okay, well, what's 5 times 12 is 60. So, okay, you have $60,000 in the bank right now. Okay, you have 12 months where you get to go out and be in the space of yes and try to figure out what it's going to look like for you. God. And that's literally how I did it. Because it was easy. I didn't have to worry about money. The one thing that I had spent my life consumed by. Right. Money directed almost every conversation or motivation I had for 30 years. Right. It was all about money.
Took it off the table.
I didn't have any growing up. Yeah. And then so when I got it, I didn't know what the hell to do with it. And I'm still not great with it, but I got better at it. Right? I met people who taught me how to be better with my money. Right. And so I'm telling you, it was such a magical place to be in for that year where I don't think it was easy for my family because we couldn't say yes to everything, but we didn't go without. We had all of our needs. We had everything met. We still went on a trip. We still got to see family out of town. It worked out just great. And quite frankly, I'm happy that my kids had to go through that little experience.
And they got to see you do it.
Yeah, because I want them to know that they can do it too.
Yes.
Like your husband going through his thing, I want every man to go through a midlife crisis and wake up and go, am I the person I want to be?
Yeah.
Is this really what I'm trying to leave behind? You know, I have this thing that, here's what changed the game for me. It was the idea that I was the transitional character in my lineage. That's what a Native American in my healing journey had told me. I know, did that just hit you like 1,000 pounds?
Yeah.
The transitional character is the person who comes here to end dysfunction for them and everybody moving forward. So you've seen this illustrated beautifully on a TikTok video where there is a Coca-Cola in one glass and a glass of water in the other. And what they do is they pour the water into the glass of Coca-Cola. And what happens? They keep pouring more water and more water and more water. And eventually there's no more Coca-Cola in the glass.
Yeah.
That's the transitional character. The transitional character comes here and gets to work. They say, I'm the one. Nobody else is going to do it. Nobody in my family has ever done this. I'm going to be the one that stands up to all of this stuff. And much like I called my mom, I'm just going to take it upon myself to be this dude for my family. And I'm going to move us. And that's the energy that I bring to every single day. So I'm here to move us.
God, that's powerful energy.
So get to work.
My God, what an interesting way to frame every day, too.
For sure.
That will get you out of bed.
It absolutely does. And it keeps my life super interesting.
God damn.
And every time I'm faced with an issue, I go right through it now. We're not waiting. We're not sitting on it for 3 days to see how we feel. We just get to it. We work it out. But we work it out unemotionally.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to win. I want to understand a little bit better. And if we can do better, let's try that.
Oh my God. You're such a powerful person.
Oh, I don't know.
No, you are.
Thank you.
That idea is maybe one of the most compelling things I've heard in a long time. Like
It was maybe the biggest for me.
Well, what I like about it is it could apply to every person if they just decide it does. So it doesn't matter, what paradigm you're working in or where you're coming from. It's like, if you want to really be motivated to move forward, to view yourself as, I'm like, that's it. This all stops with me.
That's it.
So these things that are dysfunctional or that are not like helping me grow, they come from a place. They're a program that comes from far and far, far, far back. And I have the opportunity and the responsibility it's me. I'm going to take responsibility to change it.
Do it.
And just do it.
It's
just kind of like, what the fuck else are you going to do?
Well, here's another analogy for people. Like most of us are running Windows 98.
Yes.
We are. And we're getting shit done. We're getting shit done.
Yes.
We can still check email. We can still surf the web. We can still get on Instagram. Like we can still do all the things we want to do, but our system sucks.
Yeah.
And our system needs a major upgrade.
Yeah.
For you more than anybody else. It needs a major upgrade for you so that you can be the person you want to be. Because what's keeping you pissed off every day is because you're not doing the things you want to do.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, that's my story. I stopped pouring into myself. Guess what that does to you? It makes you hate yourself.
Yeah.
It makes you depressed. It makes you suicidal. It makes you a drug addict. It makes you drink more than you're supposed to.
Yeah.
The remedy is the opposite. Get to work. Wake up every day and decide it's on you. And you can take that as like a ton of pressure, or you can take it like, wow, that's some pretty good Gatorade.
It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let's fuel up on that energy.
Yeah.
Because it's exciting to me. Because I really do believe this. I really, really, really believe this with my whole heart. You can enjoy the process of healing. It doesn't have to be a terrible thing.
Yeah.
There will be hard moments. There'll be moments where you cry. There'll be moments where it's ugly. But there will be a lot more moments like I had with my mom on that phone call where it's beautiful. And it's perfect for the first time in your life. All because you advocated for yourself. All because you went to work for yourself. All because you decided you're the transitional character in your lineage here to end the dysfunction and move this son of a thing forward. And that's awesome.
My mind is blown.
Yeah, let's go.
I don't even know what to say.
What are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling so inspired.
Yeah.
This is just exactly what I needed to hear today.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah. I mean, it's just such a gift, it's just precisely exactly what I needed to hear today. And I feel like, I feel like a veil has just been moved away from my eyes. Like you're making this more complicated than it needs to be.
Oh, that's what everybody does.
Yeah, it's just this. And like, I really struggle with having fun. So
it's one of the 6 pillars that you need to take care of yourself.
Okay. And
Humor.
so you said like healing doesn't have to be like, painful, or it can be fun, or it can be, something that you can have enjoyment in.
Yeah.
I'm so like dramatic and melancholy.
Yeah.
Like, so for me, it's like healing is this like serious thing.
For sure.
These quiet journaling moments.
Right.
And like everything feels heavy, like that is just the way that I operate. So when I feel your energy, it's like you're so like light.
Yeah.
And like joyful.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how that is how you feel.
Yeah,
like
for
to
sure.
me. So it's just cool hearing you talk this way, because it's like you're saying all concepts that I completely understand and know, but I don't know, because if I knew it, I wouldn't be relating to it necessarily in such this, which I'm just, if you're not watching, I'm like clenching my body,
yeah.
or this like, I guess this is, we have to go through the trauma conversations. Like,
that seems natural to me, because I remember in really being in my funk and driving home from work one day, and I talk about this when I speak sometimes, it's like this thought came over me and it said, you're never going to be happy again. And I was like, wow. Ever? Like, I got a pretty cool wife. I got good kids. Like, I got a good job. Like, you're never going to be happy again. And then what happened was, because the brain believes what you tell it, I started to become okay with that thought. And I started to do that. I started to tell myself that lie that I think so many parents especially tell themselves, which is, it's not about you anymore.
yes, that is a lie.
And that's such a lie, because the only way I have seen for myself, when I made the decision to pour into me, I can guarantee my boys got a different father overnight.
Right.
And I wasn't a horrific dad.
Sure.
But I wasn't as engaged as I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And we all have that within us to make that switch and go, golly. Like, here, let's do a little exercise. You ready?
Yes.
And everybody listening can do the same thing. Here, I brought a piece of paper. You can write on the back. So everybody do this. I want you to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is how we're going to drive this message home today. And so what I want you to write down is, who are the 5 most important people to you in your life? When you think about the folks that you're interacting with on the daily, your family members, who are these folks that you really see as super important to your life? And so she's going to write that down. I'll encourage you to write that down too. And I always tell people, if you hate humans and you want to write your dog, that's fine. If God's on that list, then absolutely list God. I never want to interfere with that. But who are these 5 most important people in your life? Okay.
Got it.
And so you got a good list right there, right?
Yes.
All right. And everybody else should have their list right now. And what I want to encourage you to do is to look at that list and tell me where your name falls on it.
It's not on it.
It wasn't on my list either for a long time. I didn't even consider that I could be on the list.
Right.
Somebody said, who are the most important people to you? And I listed everybody but myself.
Right.
And so what I'm suggesting is that you put yourself on the list.
Yeah.
Because when you operate your life like you matter, it's different.
Oh my God.
It's different.
I knew this was going to be the best episode.
It's different, right?
It's
in
so
the best
different.
way.
It's so, yeah.
Because now you're going to sleep when you need sleep. Now you're not going to go out when you're tired. Now when you just need a moment from your spouse or your kids, you're going to take it for yourself. You know, when you need a night out with your girls, you're going to allow yourself to have that freedom.
Right.
When you just want to go to bed early and read a book, you're going to let yourself do that, because you know that that's how everybody gets the best version of you, is when you pour into yourself. But you won't do it if you're not important. And
Right.
And I had to learn I was important. And doing that changed the game.
Oh my gosh. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. This was so fun. Are we like wrapped up and
We're
everything?
done.
Oh my God.
We ran out of time already.
It's amazing.
I feel like, I just feel so incredibly grateful. for the conversation. I just think what you just shared so much in such a short amount of time of like concentrated truth that I think that any person who's in any point in their life can glean something to help themselves.
Yeah.
So
well, and this works for everybody,
yeah,
right? This works for the
yeah.
person who feels like they are shattered and broken and don't have a leg to stand on. And this
Right.
works for the person who's killing it and ready to take the next
That's
step
exactly what I'm trying to say is it doesn't matter where you're at.
in the journey.
Yeah, because it's all universal. It will relate to you in some way if you're just willing to think about it and figure out where does it apply to you.
Yeah. And really believe this with your whole heart that the world wants you to succeed.
Yeah.
It does. But it's not going to do it if you're in your own way.
Yeah. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, man. What a great chat. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So where can people listen to your podcast? Like say all your stuff
Say
so that
all my
people
stuff.
know to go and subscribe and
Yeah.
listen because the things that, guys, the stuff that he's putting out is amazing. I listened yesterday all day.
Which podcast did you
I'm
hear?
listening to your Learn from People Who Lived It.
Okay, yeah, that's my podcast that I love. I release it bi-weekly, and it's in the mental wellness space.
Yeah.
And so we talk to all different kinds of people. The bulk of the stories are people that have been through some serious shit, and we talk to them about how they cycle out of it. Like, what are the tools that you use to get yourself out of that funk? But then we also talk to thought leaders and people that are in the space doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can go to learnfrompeoplewholivedit.com. That's the hub for everything. That's the hub for speaking and podcasting and all the beautiful things.
And so people can hire you to speak?
They can.
Okay.
For sure. I'll be
Phenomenal.
speaking. What day is today? Wednesday. Next Friday, I'm out doing a burnout workshop for Mount Carmel's Catholic schools. And I love pouring into the teachers because they're experiencing burnout at the highest rate of any profession in the world right now. Followed by, guess who? Healthcare, followed by real estate.
Yeah, we're struggling out here, man.
It's tough right now.
It's
tough
really
right
tough.
now. Well, and this is a good time for you and everybody else that's in a tough work environment to learn to let go of expectations and control.
That's exactly right.
Right?
Yeah.
You're trying to wrangle the beast.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of effort and energy, and it's wasted.
Yeah. I think having the courage to let go is something that, just having to muster that and practice it and just, again, look for signs that it's okay to let go,
So here's my question for you as we wrap.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to start taking better care of yourself? What does that look like to pour into you?
I think, I'm blessed because my husband is very supportive. So, and I've got 2 young kids. I have a full-time nanny. I have a lot of support around my kids.
Good.
I have the ability to create free time. My thing is even if I go and take free time, I never treat it as free time because I'm always thinking that time should be productive. Why? Because every moment of my day, I should be making money or figuring out how to support my family. So it's that for me. It's not so much necessarily I need a spa day, because even if I'm in a spa day, I'm still thinking about the deal, this, that, the podcast, that, all these things I'm trying to do. So
somebody told me once upon a time that tying your value to your productivity is a trauma response.
I know that shit is true.
It's so true. It was for me, man.
So,
It's still the thing for me, man. Like, I have to have this inner dialogue with myself all the time on my relaxation moments where I'm just giving time to myself, and I have to. I'm still doing this work 3 years later. I'm like, hey, bro, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to do anything. But guess what? For the whole rest of the day, you can just go on a walk.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You've built your life so that you can do that now.
So having those inner conversations, that's really like what I need to be like on, just to not let myself be in the autopilot of how I typically behave or how I typically am. I think that's where I need to
Well, as soon as you
continue to
start
work.
having the thought clap, that's a good way to kind of like break the thought pattern.
Oh, good.
And then you can but then be ready to tell yourself the truth.
Yeah.
Right? That used to be my life. Now I've created time for myself to go on a walk.
Right.
Operate as your higher self, not as this old operating system.
yes.
You
Thank
got
you.
this. You're going to be amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so is everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's so important to know. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's just step into you now.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is amazing.
Yeah. Appreciated it.
All right. Bye, guys. I hope this was valuable to you. I don't know how it wasn't. See you next week.